Today, I sat down with Marius of Dalton Wade Realty, and we talked a little bit about his business as a realtor and 1031 exchanges. So let's get into it. So please tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started in the real estate, how long you've been doing the real estate as a realtor.
Yeah, thanks Ryan for having me in today. So as Ryan said, my name is Marius Mocan. I'm a realtor here in the Sarasota, Florida area, serving Manatee and Sarasota County primarily, doing some work in Ocala and in the Lakewood Ranch area here where we're at today. So I moved to Sarasota from Portland, Oregon back in April of 2021, and I've been a realtor here serving this area ever since. And our philosophy of doing business is a lot of video content as well. I've gotten started in real estate very young in my life with my father being an investor, and I've been exposed to new construction that we did with spec homes and family businesses and whatnot. I got exposed to that very, very early on. I got bit by the real estate bug really early. I've done lending in my career as well, so I know that side of the business pretty well. And I understand the mindset of your average first-time home buyer, not so new at home buying, your investors. So I kind of work with all types of buyers.
Clients, yeah.
Yeah, so today I'm sure we're more looking at more in the investment angle of this.
So you're obviously very familiar with investor clients and everything.
Very familiar with the 1031.
So yeah, especially around the 1031. Obviously,
Exactly.
I'm here as a qualified intermediary with 1031 exchanges. So
Exactly.
So it sounds like you kind of primarily focus with clients that both are looking for their primary home. They're maybe first-time home buyers,
right,
but also have those real estate investor clients who are looking to reallocate
Yes.
or reinvest in real estate and have those investment properties. Is it both on a residential side and commercial side, or do you just work?
So
with
primarily residential, but
Okay.
I have done quite a bit of commercial work
Okay.
in the area. With obviously
Right.
that's primarily investors that look for that stuff. But we also own commercial buildings ourselves, so we look at it from that investor lens as well.
Okay.
Typically, when I'm out and about, on my daily drive to,
Meet clients or wherever it's
meet
going,
clients
yeah.
or whatever, and I've got my eyes peeled on, what's out there, and I've always got my investor lens on because you never know what could pop up because I've got a pool of buyers that may want it, right? So, running the numbers for them, I understand what they're looking at from that perspective. I know what, because everything is about the numbers at the end of the day. There's no emotions, there's
Right.
no, attachment to it. At the end of the day, they just need to see what the numbers look like, and that's going to be their determining factor of if it's a good fit or not for their portfolio.
So I'm sure they kind of tell. So I assume you have a lot of these investors who are out of state, right? So
That's
I
right.
believe a lot. I know we worked with a few, with you that are moving they're changing their portfolio from California to here.
Absolutely.
And so one of the big tools with the 1031, as we discussed that a little bit, is the ability to diversify their portfolio both geographically and across asset classes. So please tell us a little bit more about maybe a story about one of those investors that was in California, what they had over there.
Right.
Obviously they reached out to you knowing you're over here, why they picked the Florida market, why they picked maybe even this area here with it. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I believe that Florida has been and still is sort of grossly undervalued compared to the rest of the United States, especially with the opportunities you can find here, whereas California has been flipped 10 times over, right? So you've got these investors that have held onto these properties for decades. Sometimes they've even been passed down through family. And we've seen a lot throughout the pandemic where people have discovered Florida. Florida has been put on the map as the number one place to come to. They've looked into the laws for rentals. They've looked into the opportunities, the return on their investment. They've crunched all those numbers. And a lot of them have seen that it makes sense for them to sell in California or Oregon, Washington area and 1031 that money into the Florida market, where if they sold one property, they could potentially get 2 to 3 to replace that.
which is huge.
Yeah.
It's what we say. That's the beauty of the 1031. You could go from one property to multiple properties. You sell that one relinquished property, you get multiple replacement properties, and again, it doesn't have to be in that same asset class. So that
Absolutely.
diversification for any real estate investor is huge. Oh, let me get this property that's part of a residential one, but let me also get this, commercial strip mall type thing that, where vacancy, I'm not too concerned with the turnover and having just that one vacancy. So it's that
Exactly.
ability to go across asset classes.
So certain examples that come to mind right now is we've got 2 or 3 investors that have bought half a dozen to a dozen properties through us using the 1031 tax code,
Yeah.
and that's been very beneficial for them to sell there, buy here, and a lot of that was new construction, residential, because they were able to come in and kind of get a bulk discount from the builder, everything brand new, everything with warranty from the builder, which made a lot of sense for them to sell something significantly older and buying something that newer inventory
Right.
that is ready to go and they can get a good return on. Another really cool story. I have some friends in town that have sold in San Diego their primary property, and they came and bought a multi-million-dollar property on Longboat Key, and they had money left over to buy an inn as well. So they bought like a 6-unit inn on Anna Maria Island.
Huge around here. Little
Yeah.
bed and breakfast, little inns,
Oh, yeah.
little
With a huge
vacation.
return on that. So it just made a lot of sense for people just financially to make these kind of moves, and obviously people take advantage of certain markets. Right now is a really great time to take advantage of pricing and making these sort of moves. If it makes sense to sell in your home state and to purchase something here, we're able to find people some really great deals now while people are kind of sitting on the sidelines with rates and all these things going on in the economy that maybe kind of making people sit on the sidelines. So right now is a really good time. Investors are really taking this opportunity where they don't have much competition to snag up some good
tips, right?
some good properties and making those part of their portfolio.
Yeah. No, and that's one of the beauties of the 1031. It's, plus, you have the ability to defer the taxes. So it gives
Right.
more cash to the investor to be able to utilize towards that purchase of the replacement property in that line. So, kind of along those lines there, obviously as a realtor, having these investor clients or
Right.
even other clients that come in that might want to do a 1031, what are some of the important things you think as a realtor that clients should know about the 1031 from your perspective as a realtor?
So from my perspective, obviously the tax incentives around a 1031 exchange is huge, right? And it just kind of surprised me how many have bought and sold for so long and they were never told about this product.
Yeah,
So
we hear the stories all the time.
exactly,
Or,
and
or they sell and it's
Right.
it's too late or something. Then they learn about it and it's like, oh, well, it's.
Wish I would have known. I wish I would have.
Right.
My realtor told me. We hear that every once in a while where they've worked with another agent for a long time, and not that we're legally obligated to tell you this, but I always like to let my people know about this product because it's hugely beneficial to them, and the amount you're paying for a 1031 exchange is a drop in the bucket compared to what you're going to pay on a capital gains.
But even that, it's you being a part of
Right.
more of their picture. You're not just there to help locate and buy a property and that's it, right?
Right.
You're more invested to that person, their portfolio, what they want to do, and it allows for that bigger picture for you as a realtor that I
Right.
think a lot of people enjoy, from that. Is you're just not there to just sell them a home or buy them,
Absolutely.
buying
And
a home.
when I sit down with a client, I like to sit down and sort of figure out what is the big picture
Right.
goal, right? And to me, a 1031 exchange service is just as valuable as what a lender and a title company and all these other people. You've become part of my team just as much as they have.
Yeah.
And I just think that, having the tool in the toolbox to offer this to people is a huge service. And I just think that more people need to know about it. I think it's grossly undervalued and
And it's and that's what we see
Yeah.
all the time. Is we always say, we're just that additional toolbox in a realtor's belt, right? You have your lenders, you have your roofers, you have
Right.
your home inspectors. You should have your qualified intermediary because you never know when something goes in, because I'm sure one of the first things you ask is, oh, is this your primary residence? Is this an investment property? What is it? What are you looking to do? Where are you looking to go? What are you looking to do with it? And if they don't have that education on what a 1031 is, at least bringing it up and saying, hey, have you thought about this? You know, it's a great tool, might be something that you should utilize and might help you out beneficially, you know, for your portfolio along those lines. And you know, people, just like you said, you know, we're just that other toolbox, you know, that other tool in your toolbox that you can help, you know, your clients with or refer to for that in there. So so yeah, you know, that's great from helping them on that. And again, the benefits of the 1031, you know, how that helps them see that big picture that you always are working with them on in that regard there. So great.
You know,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, investors do find realtors as, they're just like, what's the point? Where's the value? You know, and the more knowledge you have and the more you have to give, it's usually the knowledge piece is what they're looking for, and that you're out there looking constantly for value.
Mm-hmm.
And they think of realtors as, you know, they don't give them enough, they don't provide enough value, right? Because the average realtor is just thinking about these 4 different ways to do a deal, but really there's unlimited ways to structure a deal and
Negotiate something. Yeah.
and negotiate something. But there's really, everything's up for negotiation, everything's for sale, everything has, you know, you can put together terms any way you like, but a lot of agents aren't comfortable with that. So I think that the ones that, a lot of them don't know about it because also you just don't know what you don't know. We've come across it because we work with these investors. We go to a lot of investor seminars and events, and where we put ourselves in these places where we can educate ourselves to know more ways to serve people and to add more value to these customers.
And that's huge even from our end. It's not only educating clients or whatever, it's educating realtors to be able to identify those opportunities. And even then, working with a realtor, you know, it's especially with the strict deadlines that come through, right? You know, it's like,
Right.
oh, we have the 45 day to identify a property. So it's, you know, us working with the realtor directly for, you know, for the mutual client saying, hey, here's where we're at, here's what they need to, here's what we have, you know, available in escrow from the sale.
Right.
Here's where they need to purchase at to be able to diversify, you know, or to have that full deferral of the 1031 exchange. And so, you know, for us, it's also working with both as a whole, right? You know, hey,
Right.
here's the deadlines they want to meet so that you're out looking for those properties, knowing we have to meet this deadline to either find something or determine a different approach that we have to take, you know, whether it's continuing with the 1031 or not from that end. So, you know, as that realtor, and we discussed that, you know, what are some of those restrictions you kind of see, you know, that you always hear about that come up, you know, especially from the 1031 side that make things a little bit more complicated or help out for you and your clients?
Some sort of restrictions.
Or you know, like we have the 45 day and 180, those timelines, or
Yes.
or it's coming back and saying, hey Ryan, you know, what are the identification rules? You know, can we identify this or this? And then we're kind of discussing, yeah, you can identify up to the 3 properties, you know, we don't care, you know, regardless of the value. Or what if we want to identify more? And then I'm working with you saying, okay, that's great. As long as we don't go over the 200%. You know, those type of things. So you see more of those type of things. I know we've had a couple clients
Yes.
that way, and you've reached out and kind of helping you that way. So.
Exactly right. There's a lot of tight deadlines. It does make things a little bit more tense, and it does make things a little bit more complicated. But what I like about it is that once I bring you into the picture, I don't have to know everything.
Right.
And you do a great job with my clients telling them, here's what the rules are, here's what you need to know before you get into this, and they are comfortable moving forward. So that's what I like to surround myself with, people that are good at educating buyers and sellers, which is why I like working with you, because I don't know all the ins and outs of a 1031 exchange. I know enough to explain it and to sell it to people, but you know, it sells itself, right? But at the end of the day, there's a lot of guidelines, there's rules, there's their
The little nuances. Hey,
nuances, right?
yeah, I think we had one where they sold as husband and wife and they went to buy in this LLC. And fortunately,
Yeah.
we couldn't, it was explaining a little bit of the nuance where we have to maintain the same taxpayer requirement
Right.
along that line. So we eventually, you do have to buy as the husband and wife. Now, there's other ways that we could possibly look at structuring that purchase
Right.
in that regard. But explaining to them why and what that caused, so I know we had a couple of those situations that came
And
up.
people,
along that way.
selling as an LLC, people leaving out of the LLC, and then purchasing with
Other partners, and all
there's
those things
all
come
sorts
in,
of
which we don't expect you to know, and that's why
Right.
you have, someone like me or,
Right.
for us to be able to help explain those nuances and those little restrictions or requirements that help make sure the 1031 is successful. Because I think in the end, that's what we
Right.
want. We're here to help you, your client, and make that 1031 successful, again, just as that extra added bonus, again, that just helps deepen your relationship with your client, your investor there, in that regard there. So, yeah, so, we see those coming through. Anything else you want to share about, your investor clients, what you see out there, or how things are going, or how 1031s might have helped them through?
Ryan, I think we kind of covered everything. At the end of the day, it's just about surrounding yourself with the professionals that know what they're doing. You're doing these every day, obviously, so it's easy for me to just hand it off and you take it from there. And I can trust that you can see it through and everybody's happy in the end. So typically, a 1031 exchange isn't that complicated once you do one. You just have to get in touch with Ryan.
Understand, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
understanding the process, and that's what we're here for.
Exactly.
In that end, we're here to make things easier, not only for the investor client, but also for you as the realtor. For our interaction with you is it's great enough to know, hey, here's what we need a contract. Once we get that in, we can take it from there. We have
Exactly.
everything else we need. It's letting you know the deadlines, getting you some of the stuff that you might need to help find maybe that property for them. But in the end, we value that trust that you put in us to help your client out, knowing that we're going to get them through the 1031 successfully in that regard. But from that end, we appreciate your time coming out, sitting, and telling us a little bit about yourself, about some of the situations that came through. So no, we truly appreciate you taking the time today. Thank you.
Absolutely, anytime. Thank you.
And that wraps up my interview with Marius. And if you have any questions about a 1031 exchange or need assistance with your 1031 exchange, my contact information is in the description below.